everyone, this is Danielle, also known as Gently Smiling Jaws, and welcome to my Flosstube for March 2025. Although, obviously, by the time this will be posted, it's at the end of the month. We're well past St. Patrick's Day, but I'm going with a green theme today because when you think of March, you think of St. Patrick's Day. And the tea that I'm having today, it's a bag tea from Organic India. It's a Tulsi peppermint tea. Here, I'll just bring that up there, see if I can get that too. It's going to focus in. There we go. And really, I've been drinking recently some Chaud Puer, which is a really, dark tea. And I was going to have that with my video today, but then I want to use this mug because it's green and it's glazed white on the inside, and I just thought I like this mug enough. I don't necessarily want to start staining the inside of it at all, so I decided I was going to switch to something else, and then did some digging trying to figure out what I was going to have instead, and then ended up on this tea, which I haven't had in a long time, and plus it's Tulsi and it's peppermint, so it's a greenish tea. So I haven't had a tea like this in a while, and at first I thought, well, maybe I'll just pull out an actual green tea. And I know I've got some around, but green tea, although I enjoy it, it isn't something that I drink a lot of, so I have a lot more pu'er and oolong around than I do a green tea or even something like this. But this seemed appropriate for today's video, and the taste makes a nice change from what I've been drinking recently, so that's what I've got here. What else? I tried to make some notes today so I can remember everything I wanted to mention, and one thing I wanted to mention, sort of story-wise, was when I was much younger, whether it was elementary school or middle school, I got a book from a used bookstore, and I was looking around earlier today trying to find it, and I think I must have it in storage because I can't locate it. And it was, so it was a hardcover used book. I think it had been around a while. It had looked like maybe you had like mice chewing on the spine at some point, but I got it from a used bookstore, which may still be there down at Pike Place Market in Seattle. I haven't, although I live here, it's been ages since I've been down to the market. I think that bookstore is still around. But it was a book about horses. I was very much a horse girl as a kid, and so I was looking around in this used bookstore when I was there with my parents. I picked out this book, got it, and then after I got it back home and I started looking through everything, I realized that impressed in between the pages of this book were four-leaf clovers. And it wasn't just like one or two four-leaf clovers. It was like 15 or 20 of them. And I had carefully picked them all out, set them aside, put them in a, special place. But now, years later, I don't know where they are. I suspect that some of their misplacement happened during the time when I was away at college, because while I was gone, the decision was made that my younger brother, who was still living at home, should be able to have my room, which was the larger room, since I was there less. And I understand that, but that meant that my stuff was moved around without, consulting me, and some things got misplaced. So I think that was a casualty of that happening. Otherwise, I would pull out my my inadvertently acquired collection of four-leaf clovers that I got as a child. So, all right, for stitching this month, I worked on 5 projects. Although a couple of them were sort of new starts that are part of a larger whole, there was really only one piece which was a a whip where I'm still working on the main whip as opposed to a small segment, which is sort of its own start and finish. So the first thing of the month here, I worked on the March section of Stitch for Pride 2025. The March section, which was about the woman warrior of Mirror Lake, and I'm going to attempt to pronounce her name correctly. I was going back over stuff just before filming this in the hopes I get it right, or at least close. I think it is pronounced Chuchin, hopefully so, or like that. And it's this section right here with the sun and dragon and sword there. And so with this being a sun, since I've been trying to kind of carry over colors for various things, I pulled the yellow that I used for Elagabalus, which is Dying for Sass Dandelion. And then I've been using Dying for Sass on most of my Stitch for Pride stuff, but I had this Cottage Garden thread variegated color, which is Verbena, sitting nearby, and I looked at that and I just decided that's what I wanted to use, so that is what I went with this time. So far so good. 3 months through the year, I've been keeping up so far. Well, hopefully I'll stick with it. I still have Stitch for Pride 2024 that I have to get back to working on. That one, as I've mentioned before, I didn't start working on that one in January of last year. I didn't purchase it when it was on sale. I only got it when it became available, when Dee, and I should say it's Dee of Dee's 20 Stitches, who does the Stitch for Pride, when he decided to make Stitch for Pride 2024 available again for a limited period of time in the middle of last year. That's when I purchased last year's pattern. I got, did a few of the months, and then in various other things it got set aside and I haven't gotten back to it. So I still have to get to that, but this I'm keeping up with so far, and that's really my goal. I want to stay on top of this. I've been trying to get my stitching done pretty early on in the month, shortly after the pattern for the month has been released, just to kind of stay on top of it. And the sizes of the patterns have been manageable so far, and I've been able to, accomplish what I'm after with that. So that is my first thing, which is both part of an ongoing whip as well as a start and finish for the March portion. Next is this, again, ongoing project, a start of a portion of it, and I'll explain my issues. This I don't have my section here. Hang on one moment. All right, I had to locate my little piece of mat board so I could at least have something behind this, since it is a light fabric. This is what I intend to be a book of stamps using all the airmail patterns from Lindy Stitches. All the patterns are now out. So, previously I had done February, March. I just started in on January. April has been released. So I have all the patterns now. And so I was ready to at least, finish up this page so I could go on to the next. And so I've been planning to have 4 of the stamps on each page. This fabric is 40 count white clay from Fox and Rabbit. This around the edge is just sort of a small little feather pattern that I came up with, intending to have it look sort of like, the edging on like an airmail envelope. And when I went to go add in the stamp, that's when I realized that at the center here, see if that will focus, when I started stitching the second one, I thought I had counted appropriately, so there would be like 1 stitch space between all of the stamps. I miscounted and I didn't catch it. And so there's still room. As you can see, all of the edges of the stamps will be like kind of butted up right against each other, which is fine, but it wasn't what I intended. And I suppose on the other pages I could correct that and get right, but now that I sort of have to do this one this way, and I'm certainly not redoing this, I'm more inclined to keep it like this so everything is consistent. But discovering my mistake was a bit disheartening, and also because I haven't stitched on this in a while, sort of my motivation for completing the whole project has dropped. We'll see. I definitely want to, if nothing else, I want to finish this page because I've already got this much done. I need to just finish it, get the rest of the around there, and then, you know, at that point, if nothing else, I will have finished, you know, this section, and then I will decide what to do after that, but I want to get at least this done. So the only thing I've done so far is part of the you know, edge and then a heart. That's on January, so that's only 331 stitches. So I got a portion done, but not that much. I've started in, then of course I got distracted by other things, but this is the first time I've picked this up in a long time, so there's some progress there at least. And as I mentioned, part of that was because I wanted to get this section done and I was waiting for those 2 patterns to come out. So I was waiting for the remainder of the patterns to come out, and April just came out at market, so that was part of the reason that it got put aside for a while. But progress is progress. So again, a new start in an ongoing project, but not a finish yet on that section. So that was number 2. And the Stitch for Pride one was about 1,172 stitches. So next, which is this is an actual true brand new start and finish and fully finish during this month, is a freebie pattern from Witch's Garden Crafts, where you need to join her Patreon, but you can do it as a free member to get access to this freebie pattern. I'm gonna see, since I put it in a frame that I had on hand that worked, but the frame, I know it's gonna have reflection issues when I hold it up, so I may end up having to insert photos to show you. But this is No Kings in America. Let's see if I can maybe do that. And I sort of went off, I used everything from Stash, trying to match as close as I could to what was called for. I had some of the DMC, not all of the DMC, and so I just pulled stuff that was close. The only kind of, other than adjusting the colors to what I had, the only other thing that I changed was that I was posting this, my friend Jen, you know, had said, you know, no kings in America except drag kings, and I like that. And so in the very center there, teeny tiny, I got that added in, made room for it. And I know there is somebody else on Instagram that made a similar change on their stitched version of this pattern, and I had seen it. I didn't note down who it was. The search function on Instagram is crap. I haven't been able to find it again. And this is also a perfect time to mention, if you know of any like viable alternatives out there to Instagram that people are using or starting to use, please let me know, because there was one that I had signed up for. Was it Pixelfied, Pixelfed, something like that? That I look on it now and then, but it doesn't seem to be really used that much. And I know that's supposed to be very much like Instagram, but without the being connected to Meta and all that. And other alternative social media out there that I'm aware of, like Blue Sky, which I know that people are using, and I have signed up for that. My issue with Blue Sky is that it's supposed to be, a the social media formerly known as Twitter, but a different version of that. And I was somebody who was on Twitter at one point to, consume the content on there, but not really make posts myself. And just as I saw over the years how Twitter went and how sort of toxic it became, I started to just not like Twitter itself. And so although I signed up for Blue Sky and tried to kind of, use it, even if not posting, as far as, kind of as a different social media platform to consume content through, it very much, does look like, the whole Twitter format. And I found that just because my experiences with Twitter had not been great, just even logging in and seeing that format, I was just sort of put off. And so I've been logging in now and then, but it's not necessarily something I see myself using. What I'm really hoping for is a Instagram alternative that a lot of people are using. So if you know of one, please let me know, because I would be interested in that. But yes, this was 2,421 stitches, and I didn't bring in my my Hobonichi weeks where I keep track of my stitching. Otherwise, I'd be able to tell you how many days I finished this in. It was in a fit of rage stitching, and so over, I think in less than a week, I had, found time during the week and was stitching things. So I got this finished. Oh, and this is on it's a 32 count. Is it like a Zweigart, like natural or raw linen or something like that? Again, I was pulling everything from Stash to stitch with, and so I think I have fingerprints on this glass that I need to clean off as well. But I got this done, dug around, found that I had this frame that would work, and then decided gonna go ahead and fully finish it. So this is the first thing I've fully finished in a long time, but hey, not bad for start and finish. Okay, next is put a bird on it. This I discovered this month. I've been moving along on it. This month I actually pulled out a calculator and did the math and discovered that I wasn't where I wanted to be. So I put in some extra time to work, especially on the really large motif, and make progress. So now, as far as stitch count, I am where I want to be for this point in the year. Time for another sip of tea. So, I am caught up through March. Where I'm at, I didn't make note in here of how many stitches I did on it this month, but overall, I am at 4,592 stitches complete on this piece. And this fabric is I think this is an 18 count Aida from Banana Oil. I'm using DMC Blanc, and I'm using 2 strands over 1. And as I've mentioned before, I did my little test there. Normally my go-to would be just a 1 over 1, but I'm glad I did the test, because for this I prefer the 2 over 1, so that the white nicely stands out. And so the pattern is visible, but also the fabric kind of gets to be the star as well. So that is where I am so far on this. And I think that once I get this motif down here complete, and what I need to do to complete it is I've obviously got another one of these flower kind of heads over there. I've got some of these stems, these flowers in the other corners, and these little flowers down there, that once I get that done, I feel like I'm going to have, kind of the major hurdle in this whole piece, out of the way. And then being able to work on these smaller motifs will seem so much more manageable and a quicker payoff of, being able to say, I'm going to focus on this motif and sitting down and just getting it done, as opposed to, that massive piece, which obviously required a lot of time to get to where I got on there. So that is put a bird on. And I guess the other thing I should say is that I missed the monthly Zoom for the put a bird on it, and I fully intended to go. It's just there have been some things going on this month that have caused some stress, and that I had been looking forward to that Zoom, and then that Friday I got home from work, and once again I'm just like, I have no energy to do this. I walked in the door, I wanted to get something to eat for dinner, and thought by the time I do this, I'm not going to want to log onto the Zoom, and my motivation just to do that just went out the door, which made me sad. So coming up, and because of some other obligations and things I have, I don't know that I'll be able to do it for I'd like to take that day off so I can join in on the Zoom right when it starts. If nothing else, though, there will be a period of a few months during the summer when I have my Fridays off work, where I will already have Friday off, so that I can, be there, right, able to join into the Zoom right when it starts, which I think for me makes me feel less awkward to be there as everybody's joining, as opposed to popping in later, and then be able to stay for the amount of time that feels right for me, and then head out. So I'm wish I had been able to make it to the Zoom for this month, but just that it didn't happen for me. But coming up I shall try again. The last thing that I worked on this month was, in fact, let me get from this is Market Purchase Disagree from Rebel Stitcher Designs. And this was one where I knew I wanted to stitch it. I know there is a sale that's coming up a bit later, and I didn't want to wait. I just wanted to stitch it. Particularly because looking here at the back of the pattern, normally paper patterns, this is an interesting thing for me because, like I've mentioned before, I am a PDF pattern person. That is very much my preference. But since this was coming out at Market, I thought it was important for me to show support. I decided that this would be one of the patterns I would pick up, and I would jump through the hoops to get it into Pattern Keeper, which I have done, but because it's using, the photo and getting it in there, it doesn't do the automatic stitch count for me in there. But this pattern says that there are 7,968 stitches in it, which, really isn't all that much. So I started this. I picked out stuff from Stash, which I'll show you momentarily, before the pattern arrived, and kind of figured out a game plan for what I wanted to do. And including what I did this morning, I am at 1,171 stitches into this pattern. And as I showed on a recent video, this is an 18 count piece of Aida from Banana Oil. And I am using two colors of Roxy Flosco floss. One is the lighter of the two, and I know they do look quite close, but the lighter of the two is called Hussy, and the darker one, like I'm using for the text, is called Cheshire. And here, let me hold this up. And so that is where I am at so far. I am using the darker color, Cheshire, for the text, the lighter color, which I've used here, on the outline here, on the center of the butterfly, and I'm going to use that more on things on the outside with then some of the darker mixed in. I was going to do the darker on those two, and then I had worked on this, set it aside, came back to it, grabbed the darker floss, started stitching on the butterfly, and I really meant to do the whole butterfly, the lighter color, but I had already started stitching, and I was like, whatever, I'm just going to go with it. So that is where things are at. And this line here, I suppose I should read off the whole thing of the quote, which says, we can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my humanity and right to exist. So this line here, when I had started stitching it, I started counting over, as you see this lines up with the top of this motif, I started counting from the bottom and had gotten not quite this amount, maybe more like that amount down here. And I was looking at it, and I looked at it like last night as I was stitching on this, and it looked maybe a little off to me, but I thought, I still have to put in the other stuff. I'm sure it'll be fine. And then this morning, as I was stitching on it some more, and I wanted to get these other lines in and at least get them started so everything was spaced out, I started looking at it and I'm like, yeah, that isn't right. And so I had to frog what I had done of this line, which was actually, it was down. It was more so that the top of I had the top of this more lined up with the bottom of this, so it was down, down much further. And so I had to frog all that out, move this up, get that in. But I feel like I've made a nice bit of progress. This is very much going to be tone on tone. I am glad that I am using this fabric so soon after purchasing it, because that makes me feel good. And then this floss, I picked it up when I placed an order with Evertote, I think sometime last year, and I don't know if one of the colors was maybe limited. I don't remember for certain, but I was looking through and I liked the colors, and my thought at the time that I was making the purchase was that some of those smaller long dogs, what are they, the peccadillos, I have a couple of those patterns, and I thought, maybe I'll use this to stitch on or two of those. But I knew I had them around. I thought of them when I got this fabric in, and I thought, I wonder if there will be enough contrast between the fabric and the floss to make use of those. And I think for how I want this to look, it will look just fine. So, a good chunk of progress. As I mentioned on these, even though this isn't a huge piece, I've been trying to kind of press ahead and get like at least 1,000 stitches in on bigger pieces when I start them, which I have now done on this, although I do think I want to keep, pressing forward and get this one finished relatively quickly. There's other things I want to stitch on too. I've been meaning to get back to my own temperature chart and filling in the temps for, I don't think I've touched February. I don't remember. It's been long enough since I picked it up, but I want to catch up on putting in the stitches for the temperatures on there, which really isn't all that much stitching, so I know when I go and pick it up, it's not going to take me too much to catch up on it. I just haven't done it and need to do it. So there's other things I want to get back to. So part of the reason of taking it out of the hoop was to show it on this, but also because I think I do want to do some stitching on some other stuff before I get back to this, although I don't want to leave it sitting too long. So those are what I have been stitching on in March. I have some market stuff to show. Let me take another sip here. Okay. For market, I picked up some things. I'm not showing everything I picked up because when I placed my order, I picked up some patterns where I'm like, okay, if I'm going to buy some paper patterns, let me look and see what other patterns I may want to get since I was ordering through Top Knot. Let me look and see if there are other patterns that are like only available in paper or things I haven't picked up yet, where if I want to add them into my order, I can do that. So that's sort of what I ended up doing. So there was some extra stuff. I'm not showing everything that I got, but you'll see stuff eventually as I start stitching on it, because some of this stuff I wanted to have it in my stash, but I didn't necessarily have any immediate start plans for this. So what I did want to show, because I have I don't know when I'm going to start, but I have the vague ideas of a plan for this, is I haven't done any of the in the past the cross stitch the rainbow, where you have stitchers working from the same color palette and coming up with designs that all use the same threads. So I did get a pack of the Threadworks Night Garden palette. There. And then the other thing I did was I picked up a piece of, this is 46 count Medusa's Gaze from Lappin' Loops, which is sort of a mottled, kind of slightly purpley fabric. Here, let's see if I can get that more in there. And I wanted 46 count because, again, I can't do 56 count, but 46 I can do, and I wanted to have these on the smaller side because I want to do a number of them, and I didn't want them to I wanted to be able to stitch with one strand of these and going through as little of the floss as possible as I stitch a number of these patterns. And I haven't fully decided what I'm going to do, whether I am just going to stitch all these, or the ones that I've got, or the ones I ultimately decide to stitch of the ones that I got, and just put them all on this same piece of fabric, whether I am putting them on this fabric to then cut it up and either make a little book like I want to do with the book of stamps, but on a smaller scale and with more pages to it, whether I want to cut them out and do more of a journal type thing. I'm not quite sure what the final idea is, but this is fabric and floss. And the little book idea is what is tempting me, but although I have ideas for this, I have not actually attempted it, so we'll have to see how that goes when the time comes, if I go that route. So I do have a stack here. I had started to pull some of this stuff that I have out of bags, and then I just stopped, so there's going to be some glare. This one is on top because if I go the little book route, this is Artist Design Topiary Bunnies, and I wanted to do one of these with some text for, use one, have some text to it, and make it like the cover of the book, and then have whichever one I don't do on the front, have the other one and use at like kind of the very back of the book to wrap it up. So that's my plan for those, because I saw those and they looked like bookends, and I thought if I do a little booklet, that's how I would want to use those. But again, not sure exactly what route I'm going. And again, I don't know whether or not I'm going to stitch all of these, but I picked up the ones that I like because I liked these, and I wanted to support, you know, this project because I think it's a cool idea. This is Nightlife by Pixel Pixie Cross Stitch. Let me see if I can get that on that one. And these are all, I think they're all 60 by 60, or this one is 60 by 59, so they're all kind of in that size range. This is another artist design. This is the Yucca and Lavender Garden. There. This is Bendy Stitchy Stargazing. This is Pickle Barrel Designs My Secret Garden. Tiny Modernist Twilight Moon. This is one of the ones I quite like a lot. Robin Pickens Constant and Perennial. Move that closer, you can see more of the part there. Catch and Release by Shaded Stitchery. Nightmare Garden by Top Knot Stitcher. Counting Puddles Moonlit Moth. Ink Circles Forget-Me-Nots with the little elephant there. Night Owl by Stitchy Prose, another one of the ones that I quite like. Then Fox and Rabbit, They Bloom at Night. And PK's Moth by Kathy Barrick. Let me try and, there we go. So again, I'm not entirely sure what direction this project is going to go, when I am going to start it, and which ones of these I will ultimately stitch. If I'm guessing that depending on how many I decide to do, I may be needing to get more of these, but I wanted to start with one pack because unless and until I was fully committed to doing a lot of stitching, I wouldn't be needing that other pack for quite a while. So those are my plans for that. The other ones I wanted to mention, again, I don't have any timeline for when exactly I'm going to be starting these. These again are just patterns that I quite liked, and I think on these I pulled out the actual pattern itself from the printed pattern, so that way I didn't have to worry about accidentally showing it on here. This is Heartstring Samplery and Ode to Libraries. And I suppose this is the perfect time to say there's not really going to be a book section in this because I haven't done any reading in the last month. I think I picked up my copy of Crystal Singer and maybe read a handful of pages, and that's the most that I have done. I haven't listened to any audiobooks. I did check out an audiobook a couple days ago. I haven't started listening to it yet. We'll see. I have to get I got out of the rhythm of doing it, and now I have to go through the process of getting myself back in again. So not quite sure when that's going to happen, but still, because the vast majority of what I've been reading in this past year or so has all been through the library, this seemed quite appropriate. And it says on it, "The very existence of libraries affords the best evidence that we may yet have hope for the future of humanity." And I both liked the sentiment, I liked how the pattern looked, and so yeah, I wanted to pick that up. And it wasn't until I was looking closer at this pattern as I was pulling it out for, to show on this video, that I realized that the frame that this is in has pages from books on it. I'll try and bring it closer so you can see there's text on there. So yeah, no exact plans on when I'm starting that, but have it on hand. And then I did get parts 1 and 2 of Follow Me, the collaboration between Bendy Stitchy and Stitchy Pros. So the two here, which have the border around, and then the text on there that says, "Weep not, my friends and family dear, I am not dead, but sleeping here. When you come my grave to see, prepare in life to follow me." I did not get the Dinky Dyes thread pack for this, because one, I was sort of buying enough, I wasn't ready to spend on the thread pack as well, and I wasn't certain that those colors were what I wanted to stick with for mine. So again, not sure when I'm starting this, but wanted to make sure that I picked it up. And I guess as far as plans, other than talking about this, is that that menagerie pattern that I had showed in my last Flosstube, the one where I picked up the kind of galaxy looking fabric from Bestitch Me to stitch that one on, and I figured I was going to do that one just in DMC Blanc, like I'm doing with a bird on it. After I posted that, let me take another sip. Every time I do one of these, my throat starts to So after I posted that, Nithya commented and mentioned that she's working on that pattern also, and maybe we wanted to do something where we stitch on it on like Mondays and do like Menagerie Mondays, or something like that. And that's something I'm certainly not opposed to. My main thing was wanting to make sure that I was caught up with Put a Bird on It. I'm going to do some thinking tonight and then decide about how soon I would like to get going on the menagerie pattern. Part of it is that I'm now to the point where I have enough projects going on. I want to start finishing some more things, and part of it is I think all the project bags that I have on hand have stuff in them. And although I would love to purchase more project bags, I really shouldn't be purchasing project bags right now, and so it would be better if I could clear out a project bag before starting a new project. But then again, I jumped in to Disagree, and I don't really have a project bag for that one, so I need to figure out whether I am ready to start something else new right now, or whether I want to make an effort to push through and finish something to clear out a bag before I move forward with something else. We'll see. Things to think about, because I do like that pattern and would like to start on it, and I think working on it, and having Nithya work on hers as well would certainly be, a motivating thing for me to work on mine. What else do I want to cover? That is sort of all the cross stitch stuff. There's not really, I already talked about what minimal book stuff I had to talk about, so there's not going to be a book section on this one, but I do have a couple things I want to mention. So one of the things that I wanted to touch on, and if you follow me on Instagram, you will have noticed me mention it there. earlier this year, I finally canceled my Amazon Prime, and for me, that's been a long time coming. Um, I think that as a customer, using Amazon has been has always been a pretty good experience, particularly if you had Prime, stuff is gonna, show up. Sometimes there'd be little, hiccups here and there, but over the years with Amazon and seeing things about how they treat their employees, in a previous job where I worked with people, where we had Amazon or some, departments at Amazon as a client at this previous job, I found the business of working with Amazon rather unpleasant. People never stuck around. You'd get to know somebody, kind of teach them how we needed things to do what they wanted, us to do for them. And just when we got that down, they'd be out the door and on to something else. And we would have somebody new to work with who didn't know what was going on. And sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes you would have a situation where, because Amazon is a big company, you would be working with people who would expect you to drop everything and bend over backwards and do something on short notice and without a thank you for it. And that was just a unpleasant thing to deal with. And this was years back at a job I am no longer working at. But yeah, there have just been a number of things over the years where I have very slowly started weaning myself off Amazon, because although it was very convenient, I disliked the idea of giving them money more and more. And I just, but even though I didn't like to do it, it was still very difficult for me to let things go. So over the past couple years, I have cut back quite a bit, but would still, place orders now and then, still paid for my Prime, because I would still place occasional orders where I would want to get stuff, quickly. And, then this, my Prime renewal was, I think, in September or sometime in the fall. And I let it renew last year. And I figured, well, this coming year, this coming fall, I would, hopefully not be renewing then. And then various things in the news that made me upset, talking to other people, in my life about things. I made the decision. I went in there and I'm like, okay, I'm going to turn off the auto renew. So that way it's not going to automatically do it. If I must have it, I'll have to go in and manually turn it back on. So I did that. Within about a week of doing that, there was something else in the news that made me angry enough that I just went in and canceled my Prime completely. I was just like, screw it, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And because, and I think it had been, whenever my renewal was, to the time I canceled, had been somewhere in the vicinity of like 5-6 months. And I hadn't used any Prime benefits during that time period at all, so I got a full refund, which was great. So I am now done with Prime. That doesn't mean I'm never going to shop with Amazon again. I may find myself in a situation where that's what I need to do, and ordering even without the Prime is just, what's going to work in that situation. But what I find that I do now is I may go and look on Amazon for certain things, look at some reviews, although sometimes, depending on the product, sometimes I look at the reviews and wonder how many of them are legitimate or not. But I may use Amazon for research and then go look elsewhere and purchase the product. And, this isn't to say to you, shame, shame, if you're using Amazon, you should stop and you're a bad person if you don't. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is, if you're somebody who does want to move away from Amazon, it can be done. It may take you time. Like I said, this was a years-long process of me slowly stepping back until I reached a point where it was my breaking point, and I just stopped. But if that is a goal, if stepping away from Amazon is a goal, it can be done. It may take time, but you can get there. So I just wanted to mention that. The other thing that I wanted to mention, which this is a video and channel recommendation with some caveats, because it's not going to be for everybody. There are reasons where I can understand why people would not want to watch. Time for another sip of tea. The video in particular that I want to mention is a video called Lawyer, Passport, Locksmith, Gun. And this is a channel from a fellow who goes by Deviant Olav. He is somebody who works in security, penetration testing. Very, very interesting fellow. I came across his content when I was, I was curious about this stuff, and I was looking up content, and I came across him and lockpicking lawyer, who you may be familiar with, and people like that. And so over the years, I've sort of, not watched every video, but watched, certain things on his channel, and I found them interesting. This particular video went up a couple years ago. It was like 2022 or something like that. So it's a few years old. Some of the things in it are, particularly since the beginning of this year, are not necessarily the most up-to-date information, but it's things you may want to think about, things you may want to do if it's something you are able to do. And as I said, with some of the stuff being out of date, I can understand why some of these things you may not be able to do. And for me, like I said, I'm giving this with caveats. I am not somebody who owns, or somebody who ever wishes to own, for a variety of reasons, any firearm. That is not for me. That is not why I watch this content. So know that going into it, there may be things that you want to skip over, or you may want to give this a pass. However, what I will say is that this fellow is someone who, although firearms is part of what he does, he is very much about empowering those who are BIPOC or in the LGBTQIA plus community, who have an interest in doing this. He wants to help those people get involved and show that not everybody in that community has the sort of viewpoints you may automatically associate coming from there. So that is my caveat there. And also in this particular video, it's about an hour and a half, so it's a long video. If you do want to watch it, you may want to watch it in chunks. I don't remember if in the description there are timestamps, but I think if there is not, there are at least timestamps down in the comments that you can use to skip over things you may need to. And I just rewatched this, which was probably like the third time I've watched this over the years. There's, particularly towards an end, there is a segment with stories touching on the treatment of incarcerated trans folks, where he very much gives a warning and saying that if you need to step away, that is perfectly fine. It's a recorded talk that he was giving at some sort of like a convention. And the story that he touches on in this talk, he has been providing kind of updates on that individual situation in videos over the years. Particularly, there were multiple updates this year, as given the current state of our country and changes in the situation and how that is changing, and it's things that are very difficult to listen to, even as me, somebody who is not personally affected by this. And so I can see how some people may not want to listen to those things at all. But if you are able to, it is good to be informed about what is going on. On a lighter note, aside from that video, just from a purely, interesting sort of thing, he does have a number of talks, a lot of them, recorded things that he had given at various, conventions, which can be interesting to listen to, because as, somebody who is involved in the penetration testing field, which is not something I am qualified to be in or would want to do, but it is fascinating to find out about. Like talks about things having to do with elevators or just pen testing in general, or something about like fire suppression things, I think sometime in the last, year or two. All these things that I wouldn't necessarily go out of my way to find information about and listen to, but it's kind of fascinating to listen. So that is my ramble way off the topic of cross stitch. But I think that is where I'm gonna wrap it up for now. Where are we at? The video is at just about an hour, probably after I edit out the beginning of this video. Things, if I sneezed or coughed, things like that, it's probably gonna be just under an hour. So if you've made it all the way through, thank you so much for watching the video and for being here and subscribing if you're a subscriber. And I will be back towards the end of April with my next video. Thanks so much. Bye.